Welcome to Actual Spinster. Welcome back. I'm going a bit crazy. My deadline is very soon, but basically I decided that I was going to film this video in my break because I want to do something nice. Also I have this cake right here which I bought so that I would have motivation, and also when I'm finished with this deadline I can eat it. Also it's going to be Sukkot soon, which means I have to prepare for that, so I also thought having a cake would be nice for that as well. I feel like I switched on the camera and I was like, oh my gosh, my vibe is it's just, yeah. Anyway, it's been working for me recently to make TBR videos where I just don't really complete them at all, which I guess is a long-standing thing that I have done on my channel, but I've never continued to make TBR videos. I've just sort of given up after a while, whereas now for the past 3 months I've been yeah. But I do think that we might be coming to a point where I'm gonna maybe make it. Which is to say that because my deadline is tomorrow, it means that October I'm gonna have to take a break because I just need to have a break, and I might read stuff during that break, but obviously I won't be doing my PhD stuff, but then things will have calmed down, I'll have a bit more time, hopefully I'll do some relaxing, I don't know what that is, and also it will no longer be the High Holy Days, which is another thing that takes quite a lot of effort and preparing and time, which is very nice, but also when you have a deadline pretty stressful. But anyway, so yeah, I feel like I might have but I'm also being much less ambitious with this TBR than with other ones, yeah. So anyway, this is my victober TBR. I don't think I actually said that. We're reading Victorian literature in October. So there are some challenges for the month, and there are 2 challenges that I especially like this year, and I think it's pretty obvious as to which they would be, but I think it's Katie's challenge is to read a New Woman book, and Roz's challenge is to read a book about class, or where class features heavily. And I would definitely argue that, reading a New Woman book is inherently reading a book about class, not just in the sense that women are a class, but also that the New Woman is a really very class phenomenon, both in terms of people's concern about the woman figure of the New Woman, and also her capacity to her mobility, I guess, is all impacted by her social class, and it's her capacity to access education, more education, and also work is super high up there. And it's the types of jobs that a New Woman does, it's not about women who become maids or join the workforce in that sense, although I think into the 1890s there's still a massive increase in that, if I'm not mistaken. Might be wrong. Anyway, I actually completely lost what I was saying, but I think I just definitely moved frame because my alarm went off, and then I had struggle putting my camera back where I was resting it before. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So I have no idea what I was saying. I have actually previously made a video about the New Woman figure. I made it a couple years ago now when I was writing my MA dissertation, which was about socialist New Women novels. So obviously I'm really interested in the New Woman figure, but I'm especially interested in her being written by women as opposed to men. I think it's A, way more interesting, B, normally is a critique of the misogyny around the New Woman figure, who isn't inherently a positive representation of women. In fact, quite a lot of famous New Women figures are representative of declining, well, many things declining, which is why, yeah, I'm more interested in her written by women, and women who obviously might have some experience, more or less, of the kind of life that they're describing for the New Woman. I would also say that I don't especially think the New Woman is present in work. I feel like I might choose a book that will sort of contradict this, but I think that generally I would say that New Women are from the 1890s onwards, maybe late 1880s. I know that as a name it was only it only came together in 1894 or something like that, but you know, her shadow or ghost, or you know, her presence obviously was there before then and also after. But you know, yeah, and I think it also is like important to say that it's not always relevant to all women, like all representation of women by Victorians. I think there can be a way that we like flatten a lot of interesting explorations of womanhood into are they a new woman, or like this is a new woman, when there are maybe more interesting questions to ask of books. But that all being said, I think it's really interesting, and I do also plan to, oh, I didn't finish telling you about my video, but anyway, I'll leave a link to it if you're interested and you didn't see it there. It also probably has like kind of similar energy to this, although I'm nowhere near writing a dissertation right now, but just like my energy, I guess, just doesn't really change. So with all of that said, I also do have a plan to make another video, kind of an update on that video, and also just generally, because I feel like not only have I learned a lot more about new women, and also just like the context with which they are in, and my research interests, and also specifically, I guess, like socialist explorations of women, and also just socialist women in general, from that era, because that is what my PhD is about. Yeah, I think it would be good to do an update, especially because I think, yeah, the new woman is not immune to being used as like a reason behind why eugenics, for example, would be good, or like she herself is quite a eugenic figure. And a couple like really famous new women writers, I mean, Sarah Grand springs to mind. They were pretty eugenicist about what they thought was good and all sorts of things. So her kind of yeah, the way she's complicit in imperialism, for example, is like a major thing, and I think is important to talk about, not just especially because like she does have a massive impact on not just her, you know, but you know, the history of feminism, and especially how the new woman figure kind of quite easily folds into, from the 1890s, 1880s into the 1900s, into the suffragette movement, which itself has this massive legacy of imperialism and eugenics. And I mean, people on the right and the left were eugenicists at the time, and obviously it has quite like a different context in the sense that like the Holocaust hadn't happened. People didn't quite have such a grasp of the consequences of eugenic philosophy, I guess, but it is still pretty like horrible to read about now, and it's also, I mean, it is pretty shitty then. Like I don't think the fact that they don't get how awful it is means it's okay that they thought it but I think it is really important to talk about. Sorry if you can hear that noise. With all of that being said, like I actually this is my sort of new woman choice. I do also have this book, which might be a little bit of a new woman choice, but I do also think it's kind of a bit too early to quite get that, but would still be kind of included. But I do think Olive Schreiner, who wrote this, is like a typifies the phenomena like as a real, as opposed to representational new woman because of her life. But this is a story of an African farm. I've definitely had it out before, but I would like to read it. And yeah, it's from 1883. Schreiner is a South African author, but she was living in London, in England. She had a massive impact on nascent socialist feminism in the UK, and I think she's considered like Victorian, even if she's not originally from England. And yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting, if difficult, book to read. It's about a woman who gets pregnant, I believe, in her early teens, and it is set in South Africa, I think. Yeah, and there's colonialism happening at the same time. And I think that, you know, I think this probably would count for Katie's challenge, although obviously maybe I'll change my mind when I've read it. And I also think it would count for Rose's challenge as well. Yeah, maybe less so for that, but again, I also do think that like anything that's really about the position of women has to be about class. Like I don't think it cannot be, but I also then have this book, which is Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Aurora Leigh, which is a poem. And yeah, again, this is something I've really wanted to get to, and I've said I've been trying to get to. I guess the theme here is pregnancy. Actually, I think maybe with the third one it's also pregnancy, which makes sense considering my interest. But this, I'm not sure, there's one challenge, I think it's Petra's challenge, which is like a first person narrative. I think this maybe would count for that, but I'm not really trying to cover all the challenges. I just think, you know, they're interesting. But yeah, so this is a poem, yeah, like a woman who gets pregnant and is also a writer kind of thing. That's what I've heard. I don't really want to read the back. I'm just kind of ready to experience it myself. And then the third book I have is Liza of Lambeth by Somerset Maugham, which is from 1897, I think it was, and is about someone who lives in the drab slums of Lambeth. 18-year-old Liza is the darling of Vere Street. I feel like we sort of know what's going to happen, but you know, I think she just meets a man who's an asshole and she leaves her like steady boyfriend. I'm sure it's not explained like that for him, and then he probably ruins her and blah blah blah. It's interesting that Maugham was a medical student when he was writing this, which is potentially quite relevant to what I'm writing about, which is one of the reasons I picked it up, but it's also because it's interesting. I know I said I wasn't doing my work for a while because like blah blah blah, but obviously I'm just interested in these things, and they're not, at least for the chunk of work I was doing now, they're not directly relevant, but they might become more relevant later on. But anyway, so there's this. So those are the three. So basically I've got two books that have been on my TBR for like literally ages, and then this one which was new from this year, I think. Yeah. And the book that I was just arranged to before is this, which again I have shown before. That's The Rebel of the Family by Eliza Lynn Linton, where there is supposedly some lesbian representation and just like has a fantastic title. It's from 1880, but Eliza Lynn Linton is also a very interesting figure. I know I said that I feel like new women's novels tend to be less misogynistic. I think that Eliza Lynn Linton is one of those women who's like very vocal in the public sphere, but she is also very anti-feminist, as far as I remember learning. And so I wouldn't be that surprised if, even if on the surface this seems like an interesting exploration of stuff, it's got more conservative or reactionary politics behind it, or is like attempting to be negative generally in its portrayal of women and of the way that womanhood is developing, or like the changes that are happening because of like women's easier access to education, work, that kind of thing. But it obviously should be said that, I mean, women working, like being paid as well as doing unpaid, like, but being paid for work isn't new. Like, it's only new to, you know, middle class women who didn't have to do that, or whose finances changed, or I guess to like, you know, more upper class women whose finances changed really considerably and then have to figure out how to earn a living, or you know, whatever. So anyway, but blah 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 blah. I'll leave a link to all the information about Victober in the description box. You know, I feel like I rambled, but I guess that's just what I do. You know, but I should definitely go and then go back to my brain destroying working. If you've read any of these three, or have any thoughts about what I said, I have no idea what I said anymore, then let me know in the comments below, and I will talk to you when I next talk to you. And if you are participating in Victober, good luck with your reading. Okay, bye.